we've got a big interview here tonight, folks.
Looking forward to this one.
Oh, so our guest here tonight, he grew up and still lives in Salisbury, Petty-Kodiak area. Since I've known him, he's always been a big race fan. And at one point, we're going to learn about this tonight, he used to be the race announcer at the Riverglade racetrack.
Yeah, no idea.
Yeah.
It's cool.
He's known for his baseball. He's a heck of a softball player. This guy, he could literally cover 3/4 of the field.
He's been known to get caught by the slider. Just saying.
He had legs in the field, no question.
Slider though, stuff.
And he was known to hit a few home runs back in the day.
He was always a big hitter.
I always thought, for playing baseball with him, he was a phenomenal athlete. I got an opportunity to play golf with him. Now, golf's not everybody's sport.
No.
It's not everybody's sport. But I think the thing...
We build you up.
I think the thing that surprised me the most is back in the day, we organized a team for a company hockey tournament, and I got to see him come on skates for the first time. And I was rather surprised at the skating quality that came from our next guest. We'll talk about that a little bit here too. But it's my pleasure to bring Corey Lounsbury on to First Down Sports.
I didn't know I was going to get this kind of review. How are you?
So welcome to First Down Sports, Corey.
Well, thanks for having me.
Before we get into NASCAR and baseball and stuff like that, let's talk about you for a second. So I know when we worked together back in the day, you were doing the race announcing then. What got you into that? How did you get into that? And how come you're not doing it?
Well, I grew up in Riverglade, which is about 30 minutes west of Moncton here. And when I was a very young kid, my dad and some of his buddies decided they wanted to get involved with racing.
Right.
So they built what were known as street stocks back then, and they raced for years. Every weekend we were going to different tracks. And the good thing about Riverglade is there was 2 tracks within 5 minutes of each other. So Riverglade, which is now, it's not operational anymore, they have a motocross track there.
Okay.
And now Petty Raceway, which is like 2 minutes up the road. And that's going strong. There's some new owners that have come in there and sort of rejuvenated the sport locally, and it's actually a big deal. We go and watch it a fair amount. But so as I get older, went off to college, took some broadcasting and journalism, still followed the sport, and had some student loans. And when I come back, the racetrack in Riverglade was under new ownership, and I got talking with a guy, and they needed somebody to try play-by-play. So I ended up announcing at the races for probably 6 to 8 years, but it helped paid off a lot of my student loans. And I was gonna go watch anyway.
Right.
So just started doing that, and then met a lot of people in the sport.
Yeah, I bet you would.
Fell in love with it that way.
When you're doing play-by-play, how many people do you have in the booth with you in that type of broadcast?
Well, it depends. I mean, sometimes you'll get drivers that are competing that night, or there's scorers that are tracking who's finishing where and things like that. But it's pretty quiet up in the booth. It's actually pretty similar to being a DJ, right? You're sort of in a room by yourself. Yeah. You got to go trackside once in a while and talk to some of the drivers. But it was a great spot to learn the craft a little bit, because there wasn't somebody right in front of you all the time, so it was good that way.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk about baseball too. So did you play baseball growing up? Because like I said, softball, you were a heck of a softball player.
Well, when I was a kid in Salisbury, it was always fast pitch.
Right.
So we never had fields that were really big enough for baseball, and just at a very young age started playing fast pitch, and as I got older and fatter, turned into slow pitch.
Right.
So that's, I really started. I still played a little bit of fast pitch, probably to my early 30s, but it was more just slow pitch. And I still play slow pitch today a little bit with the same group of guys that I would have played with when I was 8 or 10 years old. So it's fun.
That's awesome. Yeah. Did you play hockey as a kid growing up? You
no,
didn't?
I never played. Yeah, there was a sheet of ice, and around actually back, we played in the Petty-Kodiak River. Right. So a lot of pond hockey, and played some pickup hockey now, but like my young fellas on the ice all the time.
Well, you build a beautiful rink.
Yeah, we got a rink in the backyard. So no, I never played much hockey growing up. It was always baseball, a little basketball. And
awesome,
like that.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about the race this weekend. So, Kyle Busch. Which Busch won?
Kurt Busch.
Kurt Busch won the race.
Brother.
That's right. So Kurt Busch wins the race. Where was he expected to win? When they put out the odds everywhere, where was he expected to win this race? Because I know he's come in like second place in the past, right?
Yeah, well, he won a championship when he first started in the sport very early on. I would say he was probably a middle tier driver. Like, I don't think he would have been in their top 10 favorites.
Yeah.
But he certainly would have been 20 or below. He's in good equipment. He's a proven driver. He's never won a Daytona.
Right.
So just a guy that sort of flew under the radar a little bit, stayed out of trouble. So,
Yeah.
you know, somebody, whether it's via Pro Line or the odds in Vegas,
Yeah.
did pretty well because he was probably not a long shot, but somebody that necessarily wasn't on the top of everybody's mind.
Mm.
And he got into a lot of, you know, his car, if you notice at the end of the race,
Yeah.
was pretty mangled up. So,
Yeah.
of
There's
course,
a
there
lot-
wasn't too many
there's
that
a lot of
weren't.
that guy, yeah.
Well, the thing I thought that was interesting about the race, and I didn't see the whole thing, but I was flipping between the golf because I have Ricky
like Ricky
Fowler on my
Fowler?
golf pool, so I was watching Ricky Fowler. I wanted to make sure he won, and when I was flipping back and forth, what I found very interesting, it wasn't until that last backstretch that he actually took the lead. How often does that happen in racing where a guy doesn't have the lead the entire race and just pops out at the, you know, on the last lap?
Well, I think on, so they call them super speedways, but the larger tracks like Daytona and
Right.
Talladega, it happens fairly often.
Okay.
They travel in packs in those races because for safety reasons, NASCAR sort of slows down the cars a little bit and keeps them together. And with that happening, you have to travel together, and it breaks down wind resistance, and the drivers actually travel faster if they're in a group.
Right.
So if you can find a good teammate early in the race or a group of people that want to push you, it's actually better to be in second place on going into the last lap. Because you can sort of make your move and hang the guy that's in the lead, you can hang him out to dry and take off. And I think if you look back on Sunday, what happened is there was a couple of cars that got a really good push on the last lap, and Ryan Blaney, who finished second, who's just a kid, by the way. It was a big day for him as well, but he ended up coming up and pushing Kurt Busch and giving him a really good surge, and when he went by, the guy that was in first at the time, he ended up going back quite a ways. I don't remember
Okay.
who that was. But
Now, the other interesting thing about him winning was the fact that
Sponsored
he
by
races.
Monster.
Yeah, he's sponsored by Monster, and he also races for Tony Stewart,
Yeah.
who had never won that
That's
race.
right.
So let's talk about Tony Stewart first,
Yeah.
because I know in Western New York, I don't, was it last year or the year before, he had that incident in Western New York where he hit that guy on the racetrack.
Yeah, Kevin Ward Jr.
Yeah.
or something like that.
He-
That was that was a tough situation where a lot of the guys that are running in NASCAR, that they compete, you know, on a Saturday night or a weeknight somewhere, sometimes in their own equipment, sometime in somebody else's. They're a big draw.
Right.
And it's one of the reasons the sport has as big a following as it does, because a lot of the local tracks get some marquee drivers to come back. And in this particular night, there was an incident where the two of them came together, and they were running sprint cars, so these are big open wheel cars. And this other driver felt like Stewart caused the accident, and he got out of his car and literally walked down the track to kind of finger point at him and throw the helmet like they used to do back in the day. Well, nobody really know, or I've never really read what happened there, but Stewart claims he never saw the guy, and he ended up running him over.
Jeez.
Yeah, and there was a bit of a lawsuit there
Yeah.
in the family, as you can imagine. So it was just a bad situation, and you're right. You know, I don't think that led. Tony Stewart has a lot of. He owns a racetrack. He's accomplished pretty much everything in the sport except Daytona.
Right.
And he bought his own team with another guy. They have 4 cars.
Okay.
So he's a former champion. Like, he's accomplished everything almost in the sport, and I think just it got to a point where enough was.
So that it wasn't that incident that
No, he
led
raced another-
to his retirement. Then.
He raced another 2 seasons after that.
Oh, he did,
Not with the
okay.
level of success he had prior to that. You're
Yeah.
right, Ray.
Yeah.
But Clint Boyer, who was with another team, signed a contract to drive his car, and it was planned all last year. So I
Okay.
don't think that was the straw.
Can
that
you
broke-
lay back on the right race though? Because that's going to make things a little awkward as we go on.
Well, you have to adjust it. You have it.
See, I prepare before the show, which is often why I'm right. Chris.
Quick thing though, with Daytona, did you find that there were any key parts in Daytona that was a major thing that happened? I'm thinking of one thing that were the M&M car.
Kyle Busch.
Kyle Busch when he it was a weird kind of spin on that.
Well, I think if anybody had said like Dale Earnhardt Jr., Kyle Busch, and Jimmy Johnson were going to finish 35th or worse.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But that crash
Yeah, that was
that led to it. Right?
That's right. And it's interesting about Kyle Busch too, because as soon as that accident happened, he he was all over, you know, the interview saying, "Oh, Goodyear tires are crap," and Goodyear's a major sponsor. And
Yeah.
it's kind of be like Sidney Crosby saying Reebok's junk,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And Goodyear actually came back on Monday and said, you know, there was nothing really wrong with his tire. So it's a bit of a story that's brewing in the sport now, because not the first time a driver has fired out at one of the major sponsors. Tony Stewart did it a while ago as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens, whether he's reprimanded for that. She has been in the past, but that was a big turning point.
Weird.
In the race. Johnson wrecked too. He took out a bunch of the top cars, and that was right around the midpoint of the race.
But you usually see with that, there's some bumping. But when that happened, nobody was around him, right? It was
well,
kind of like a little.
I think somebody just
lose a little touch.
Yeah,
Okay,
just a little bit of wind. See the guy that was behind him. I think it was McMurray at the time. Just literally, he kind of got in between the two lanes of cars, and the wind come off the back of the spoiler, and around he went.
Around he went.
Yeah.
So was there? Because there was quite a few wrecks in this. Is that unusual for a race in Daytona, or no? That does happen, right?
That's I guess it's risk versus reward, right? NASCAR is slowing the cars down on purpose, thinking it's safer. But almost every race at a restrictor plate, 2.5 mile track, they have the big one, they call it. And they're going so fast and they're racing so close together, it takes out half the field every time it happens. So it's not a question of what, it's more a question of when, and sometimes it happens in the last 10 laps, and on Sunday there was 2 significant wrecks that took out big.
And correct me if I'm wrong too. Is you win Daytona, like that's a bit like.
Yeah, it's a pretty. I think it's like $1.5 million to win.
It's like
really
one of the biggest races.
It's the Great American Race. It's called for a reason. It's the one everybody wants to win, and it really gets your season off to the right start, because the way the format works now, you get bonus points for wins, and it helps you get into the playoff round and things like that.
So I heard a lot going into this race about NASCAR's new point system, that they have points, 3 tiers or 4 points, or 4. It's almost like they got it broke down to 4 quarters now, right? So how's the point system work, and is it good for the sport, or?
Well, NASCAR's been playing with the point system now for several years. You just sort of get your head wrapped around it as a fan, and then it changes again. What they've done this particular time is they've actually broken the race into 3 different segments. So it used to be whoever crosses the finish line at the end is the winner, and that would be it. And what happened was, when drivers on these larger tracks, like we were just talking about Daytona, a lot of times the strategy would be to hang around the back, wait for all the wrecks to happen, and then in the last 50 laps, they make a charge to the front, and they look like a hero, and they fare with a good finish. So they've started trying to put more emphasis on qualifying and more emphasis on running up front throughout the race. And they're awarding points at 3 different intervals, depending on the track. You know, if you finish first, you'll get 10 extra points at this interval. Or if you finish first in the second interval. So there's an opportunity to really incent drivers to run up front throughout the race and win these segments.
Right.
They're hoping it's going to improve the quality of the racing and make it more exciting for the fans. I don't.
Wasn't that one of the things, like it gets a little boring that they hold back?
Absolutely, and you know, it's NASCAR races are 3 or 4 hours in length. So if you're a spectator in the stands, now you have an opportunity to go down and grab a hot dog or a poutine.
Yeah, right.
If you want a poutine, whatever you want.
To the shot?
No.
I love it. I love it.
It was almost like
you were firing at him about the hat. It was only fair, right?
Tony's there. I got almost wiped out. He didn't realize that.
That's rubbing.
So it gives fans an opportunity to step away from the TV, go check the chili on the stove or whatever.
Right.
And so time will tell. It'll. You know, the older school fans are not so receptive to it. They're trying to attract new, younger fans. We'll see. I don't think it really changed the impact of Daytona, but as we get into some of these other races where a guy that has a bad qualifying run and ends up at 35th, maybe he can't get to the front fast, and those points will start to impact him in a negative way. He'll have to take chances later in the season. Who knows?
Okay. Well, that's a great NASCAR update. Thanks, Corey, for giving us that.
I got a few things.
Sorry.
So 2 things. So who's your favorite driver? Gotta know that.
Well, I'm a Kyle Busch fan, and I would say there's a new Kyle Larson's come on the scene in the last couple of years, and he's really exciting to watch. And he's still young and hasn't won anything real significant yet, but he's been all around victory lane, and I think he's somebody that you'll see, and it's a name that you'll have to watch out for in the next couple years. So I like watching him too.
Last one is, where's your favorite race? Is Daytona your favorite?
I like the short tracks, just growing up locally here. So Bristol's a favorite track of
Nice.
mine. You know, it's exciting. It's just like watching a race in a football stadium.
Yeah.
So it's.
So if you were to get somebody that's new to the sport,
I'd say go to Bristol.
Bristol is the way to go.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking to pick a driver this year. So I'm looking through. My daughter and I picked out Danny Hamlin.
Yeah.
He put on a good race. My daughter likes purple.
Actually, he's from Virginia.
Okay.
And Richmond Bristol's in Tennessee, but there's races in Martinsville and Richmond, Virginia that are also short track. So the short tracks are a little more exciting to watch. There's always action happening throughout the race, and if you're a new fan, you probably enjoy watching that one the most.
Awesome.
Great.
Awesome.
All right, let's jump over to baseball for a second. I want to talk some baseball with you. So, the Jays kicked off last Saturday spring training.
Yeah.
They kicked off to an 0-4 start. Now, when I go back and I look at the box score, it's not a lot of starters are playing.
Ooh, that sounds good.
But then, as of today, the Jays beat Pittsburgh 12-0.
Yeah.
So
The Bats finally woke up.
the Bats finally woke
Even
up.
though you don't recognize anybody in the lineup, the
They're-
Bats woke up.
There's not many guys in the line. They're playing a lot of AA and AAA guys. So what's your thoughts on the Jays this season, heading into the season?
Well, I think they certainly have a solid starting pitching rotation,
Yeah.
arguably one of the best ones in baseball. And the key to the Jay season, in my opinion, is going to be to stay healthy.
Right.
I mean, we're a week into the season. You've got Devin Travis, who's coming back from an injury last year. Donaldson's got a calf injury, so
Yeah.
is he going to make it back? And, you know, guys like Stroman have had some injuries in the past, so like any team, injuries are important, but I feel like the Blue Jays just aren't quite as deep as they might have been in previous seasons, especially pitching-wise.
Right.
So if they can stay healthy, they'll be okay. You know, yeah, they've got a very, very solid lineup, especially the top 7.
Oh yeah.
I think they need to find a left fielder.
Yeah.
But yeah, they can make some noise come September, October.
Absolutely. One guy I want to talk about in particular about the Jays, because I'm not a huge fan of his whatsoever.
Oh boy.
Justin Smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still on the roster. It's still on the roster. It's going to be tough to. What's your thoughts on Justin Smoke? Can he turn it around and actually have a season this year?
Well, I coach a little bit of baseball. I wouldn't trade like a pail of wiffle balls for him personally, but
Yeah.
And the Jays are locked into an $8.5 million contract. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you dump him. He does hit for some power, but he also strikes out probably 3 times to every hit that he gets.
Right.
And they got Morales. They signed to play first base.
Yeah.
Smoke can fill in defensively a little bit at first, but I just don't know what you do with him.
Right.
If he's not playing every day, can you afford a guy that strikes out 300 times a year in your lineup? And
Yeah.
I just don't know what they're going to do with him. You're not going to get much value out of him.
I found one of my buddies had one good thing to say. Andy Jardine says that he's a good defensive first base.
That's right.
He's got that lefty.
Yeah.
You know, he can stretch it. You know, so he's a good defensive. He's a good defense. Put him on first, but that's it. I don't like him. I want him gone too.
I'm not. I think the Jays got to do a little bit more searching there. But it's
Russell
tough because
Martin's
of
a
that
big piece
contract.
of their.
Yeah.
I think Russell Martin's a big piece of their year too. He was hurt a lot last year.
Yeah.
They've got a second catcher to come in and help him out. But
Yeah.
that pitching staff is they're young and they rely very heavily on him calling a game behind the plate, and he's
Yeah.
historically done a great job. So if he stays healthy, he's a big piece of it as well.
Okay.
And Pierce is there too, right? Like that's one of
That's
the
like
pickups.
guy
Yeah.
picked up.
Yeah, like Morales. I think Morales they can play in multiple positions.
Yeah.
Pierce can do like the DH. He can do first base.
Yeah.
Well,
So
they
you're
got
not
Barney,
gonna
they
see-
got Goins.
Oh, jeez.
They got lots of guys here that fill in utility in the infield.
Well, they do. They got a lot of guys. So it leads me back to what are we doing with Smoke on the roster? That's a big roster spot.
He's
in
got
baseball.
he does have a big bat though. So
You got to think they didn't know who was going to play first base until they signed. Like Edwin was looming out there,
Yeah.
and I think that sort of held them up for making a decision. And by the time,
Well, I'm wondering if they're going to bring Bautista into first base because he can't play right field anymore. He was horrendous in the field last year. I wouldn't be surprised to see Bautista line up at first at some point this year.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
I'd be surprised if that happens.
Well, that's my.
They're saying
you heard it
I
here
know he's
first.
35 or
You heard it
36
here
years
first.
old.
He's got too much of a gun, even though
Yeah.
he may be a little bit. He's got that big gun.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tim Tebow showed up for the Mets on Monday.
Ooh.
Huge media reaction. The players were all loving it too.
Yeah, 9 home
Right.
runs in BP. I was reading
What?
today. I guess. Yeah. I don't know if it's slow pitch or not.
So what do you think? Does Tim Tebow actually have a shot at making, maybe not major leagues, but is he going to make a AAA ball club that can get him up to the major leagues?
I mean, I remember when I was a kid, Michael Jordan tried to.
Yeah,
play the whole
absolutely,
game.
yeah,
So
same
actually, I
here.
think I have his rookie card at
Yeah.
home or baseball card. Tebow's a great athlete. He's 29 years old. He can. I think if he's not too much of a liability for them, he'll fill seats in the stands.
Yeah.
What's the harm in paying the guy a couple $100,000 and having him hang around the minor league?
Yeah.
I don't think he'll. I don't know. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. I don't see him being somebody that's going to crack an everyday major league lineup.
I personally think
He's got some Justin Smoke like qualities, right?
Yeah.
He's going to go yard or he's going to K.
Did he kneel after the home run? Was he down?
No, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't see.
I personally think he should be playing in the CFL. I think the CFL would be great for him. Give him an opportunity to put something together, and that
At
would
quarterback or somewhere
be.
else?
I think quarterback.
I think he should try something else.
It's not a different position.
It's not Pryor.
Yeah.
Right? Pryor did the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, but Tebow, I'll tell you one thing about a quarterback. Sure, he didn't have the arm that some of the guys do, but I go back to watch him play in Denver that year.
Mm-hmm.
When there's 3 minutes left in that ball
Yeah.
game,
He
and
made
he's got
something
the ball in
happen.
his hand, he's got that will to win. He knows how to win, and a lot of athletes today don't know how to win a game.
There's a lot of good things that happen in that playoff game. I get it. He did throw a good strike, the last strike. But if you did watch the whole game, there was a lot of brutal throws in it. A lot of brutal throws.
Yeah, he did make brutal throws, but he
Scoreboard
still
still
know
had
how.
the Broncos
He did it.
winning.
Yeah,
That's right. Broncos still won. He took them to the playoffs. How many young quarterbacks take a team to the playoffs today? Not many.
Taylor? No, not Taylor.
No, not Tyrod Taylor. All right, thanks Corey for
Hey,
coming
no
on. I
problem.
appreciate it.
All right.
I'm gonna keep you on.
Oh, okay.
I have a little.